Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James. This is your Rangers news channel, guys. Obviously, please hit that sub, ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the great free daily content here on the channel. Right, so what have we got coming up today? Well, look, let's first get it out of the way. Scotland lost again last night. Another promising start where they went 1-0 up with Scott McTominay scoring the goal. But Portugal hit back to win 2-1 with an 88th minute Cristiano Ronaldo goal, sealing the victory for the Portuguese at home. A game that I think, Scotland did hang on a little bit. Now, it makes it only one win in 14 for the Scottish national team. That win only coming against Gibraltar as well. Not exactly the biggest of victories over not even a real country, really. Let's face it, Steve Clarke is bang under pressure. Steve Clarke, a man, obviously, who dislikes Rangers intensely. And obviously, as well, no role for Conor Barron or John Souttar. So that's obviously last night. Let's get out of the way. International football now. Hopefully now, with this week beginning, we are ready to focus solely on obviously building up to the Dundee United game on Sunday. We are back to proper, real, genuine football. What have we got in the video today for you? Well, we've got a little bit on James Tavernier, his possible departure this week to Turkey, and Rangers may be looking at a replacement for him. With obviously that having, put some depth in behind Dujon Sterling. Does that mean that Kasan Virgil is seen more as a centre-half? Obviously opens that debate. Former Republic of Ireland international and former English Championship player has been linked with a move to Rangers. We'll talk a little bit about that in the video, so hang on for that. We've also got some news about the Clement Lunny Lovin as the technical director for Trabzonspor comes up with some rather bizarre comments about John Lundstram. That's a very bizarre comment indeed. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've also got a former Rangers player, former Romanian international, digging in a little bit on Hagi and digging in a little bit on Clement over his treatment of Ianis Hagi. We've got that as well coming up. And please hang on to the end of the podcast. We're going to come up with a little bit of a personal message with a little bit of personal message for myself over a few things I want to get off my chest as regards the podcast, as regards myself, and as regards the future. Well, let's start with James Tavernier. Look, James Tavernier is a player who has been a fantastic servant for Rangers in the past. His numbers are absolutely outstanding. Goals, assists for a right back are just off the charts, aren't they? I mean, let's face it, other than Graham Alexander, no British player has ever come close to those numbers. Yes, it's obviously not the greatest of all time. You look at the likes of Ronald Koeman for the greatest stats in terms of goal scoring of all time. Ronald Koeman, an absolutely legendary player for Barcelona and Holland. But you know what? The rumours of Tav going to Turkey are persisting and obviously not coming to an end anytime soon. That's because the Turkish window doesn't close till the 18th of September. So yes, he's got another 9 days to run, and Turkish clubs are continuing to do business over this period. So we know that there's around 4 teams in Turkey that are allegedly interested in James Tavernier, according to reports. Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, Besiktas, managed by former Rangers manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, and I think it's Istanbul Başakşehir were the other team that allegedly were interested in Tavernier. Now, a number of sources are reporting that the club are willing to listen to offers for James Tavernier if the right offer comes in. Now, obviously, we heard earlier in the window there was a rumour of Trabzonspor putting an offer, but it was €1 million away from what Rangers were looking at, and they never came back with a second bid. More's the pity. That money would have been very useful during when the window was open to bring in additional players. Now, look, I think we've all kind of all talked Tav to death, the whole subject of James Tavernier to death. And no matter what your feelings are on James Tavernier, I know there's a certain group within the fan base that love James Tavernier, that hope that he remains for the entire of this season. There's a lot that would love him to have this testimonial so they can come pay tribute to their favourite player. But there's a number, obviously, within the fan base that want to see him gone, that think that the time has come for him to move on. There's a saying, isn't there, about, you can obviously, know when your time is to go out as a hero, or you can live long enough to become the villain. And I think James Tavernier is in danger of kind of becoming the villain of the piece. But, you look at James Tavernier, and to some extent, you can kind of see why he might want to leave the club this week, or obviously leading up to the 18th. I think he is feeling the pressure. I think he genuinely is getting the pressure, on him. You look at his reaction to the way that when that fan had a go at him. he did respond. He had to be restrained and pulled back a little bit. Whereas in the past, that was not something Tav would have done. He would have kind of just walked on, ignored it, and kind of got on the bus and just got on with his business. So I think that's kind of one indication. I think personally think that Tav is kind of realizing that he can't do what he used to do. He's trying his very best to kind of try and hide that fact that he can't do what he used to be able to do. I think there may be a realization from the player, as I think all players kind of self-realize, don't they, where they are in their career, what they can and can't do anymore. And yes, there may be some denial of that, but I think there will be that sort of resignation from Tav, that perhaps he is at that stage of his career where this is a step too far for him, and that he is really genuinely struggling and not enjoying what he's going through at the moment. I think as well, to some extent, he's been put in a position by Phil Clement that isn't fair on him. I do genuinely feel that Tavernier has been badly treated to that aspect, that that he's been put in a position where he's been asked to do something that he can't do anymore. He has lost a step of pace. Dyson Maida does make him look like an absolute mug on a regular basis, and the manager's not putting in place a strategy to stop that, which is slightly unfair on Tav. There may also be that desire as well to get that one last payday, a big move abroad to a foreign club. You get a signing on fee, you get some decent transfer fee, you get some decent wages. Your last chance at a big payday. So that that could be something else that he's looking at. And who knows? Who knows? That could be a possibility. Now, anyway, the player that has been mentioned as a possible replacement for James Tavernier is 31-year-old Cyrus Christie. Now, I know what you're all thinking. He's 31. James Tavernier's 33. How is signing a 31-year-old going to help? Well, I think this would be a short-term measure, perhaps for the rest of the season, or maybe an 18-month contract to kind of cover behind Dujon Sterling, who has got a rather checkered injury history. It does seem that, that Adam Devine is not part of this plan. Is it that Narasheo Casanvirgio is not part of the plan at right back? Is he more a centre half? This is what this report would appear to indicate. Or is it that, that Sterling is seen as now has been a winger stroke central midfielder, and that Casanvirgio is a right back, and this guy, Cyrus Christie, could be the backup right back or the starting right back. Now, Christie is a free agent, so he would only cost a signing on fee plus wages. There's been no drop-off in Christie. Apparently, the reason he was released by Hull was the fact that he came off the back of an injury, got back from that injury, but never sort of reclaimed his place in the first team and was deemed surplus to requirements, as Hull sought to kind of regenerate their squad front of the push at the playoffs this season. Now, according to reports here in England, he is reportedly attracting interest from English Championship clubs, which obviously is a slight concern given the budgets, the money they can offer. Championship clubs do have slightly more money this year due to an increased TV deal. The teams that are interested are three teams: Coventry City, let's face it, who want to go to that shithole? Preston North End and Millwall are all allegedly interested in securing the services of Cyrus Christie. Now, according to reports in the English media, any move for Christie by Rangers would be dependent solely on James Tavernier leaving. If Tavernier didn't leave, there would be absolutely no interest in the former Republic of Ireland international, although he was born in England. In fact, he did play for the Republic of Ireland. This is what we know about Cyrus Sylvester Frederick Christie. He's 31 years old. He was born in Coventry in the West Midlands. I guess we all have our crosses to bear in life. He's over 6 foot tall. He has English and Irish citizenship. He is a right back, right-footed. He's currently without a club. He can play as a right back. He can also play as a central midfielder, a centre back. So he can fulfill a number of roles. He's not a one-trick pony. He is a player who does have the ability to play in a number of different positions, which we all know Philippe Clement likes from his players, that ability to fulfill a number of roles. He doesn't like the uni role player. He likes that multi-role player, someone who can do a number of different jobs, which gives him options and also gives that player an understanding of a number of other positions on the field. In terms of Cyrus Christie's career, as you can see, he played the majority of his career at right back. He's played 365 games there, 23 games as a right midfielder, 11 as a centre back, and also 8 in the left back position. He's played for Derby, Coventry, Fulham, Hull City, Nottingham Forest, Middlesbrough, Swansea, and Fulham's under 21s. So his entire career has been south of the border. his majority of his appearances came at Derby and Coventry. So, Coventry may have a pole position on him. Not only was he born in the city, but he also played for the team previously. Like I said, we all have our crosses to bear in life. Coventry's been an absolute shithole of a city. Derby, he had 119 games at Derby, 2 goals, 9 assists. 119 games at Coventry, 3 goals, 13 assists. Played for Fulham as well, 68 games, 2 goals, 3 assists. Hull City, his most recent club, 56 appearances, 3 goals, 3 assists. Nottingham Forest, 44 appearances, 5 assists. Middlesbrough, 26 appearances, 1 goal, 3 assists. Swansea, 23 appearances, 3 goals, 5 assists. So a very varied CV, playing Championship, Premiership football. This is a guy who's got a good, sound experience in the game. So, would be, a decent addition in terms of leadership, in terms of experience to the squad if Tavernier departed. It's interesting to see, isn't it, that according to reports, the club are still planning and are still able to replace him with this free agent if, obviously, Tavernier does depart. Now, I think that was obviously the worry of a lot of people, was that they wouldn't allow Tav to leave if, because of the fact that we couldn't replace him. So it now looks like there is a possibility to replace him. A deal is there to be done. So, who knows what this week ahead could hold. We know Tav might decide that that's enough is enough, that he wants to move on, that he wants to depart the club. He's obviously just bought that £1 million flat in Glasgow as well, setting up that continued property portfolio. No matter what you think of that. So it could be that there is a deal to be done this week, or up until obviously that Turkish transfer window finally closes. Right, so look, let's talk a little bit about the loving Phil Clement and John Lundstram. I think it's fairly clear that Clement didn't really want Lundstram to leave. I think he would have liked Lundstram to stay. Now, personally, I think this would have been a bad move for the club. Lundstram as a player was a very streaky player, was a player at times who looked, quality, at other times looked exceptionally poor. And towards the end of the season, had kind of down tools to an extent when he wasn't going to get that new contract or the high wages that he wanted. Lundstram, I think, slowed the game down. I think, Rangers played worse when Lundstram was in the team, to be honest with you. However, Phil Clement seems to be left ruining the day that Lunny left. I mean, was even talk, wasn't there, when he mentioned him in a post-match interview, the fact that he was ruining the departure of Lundstram, which I felt at the time I remember commenting on and saying I felt that was a little bit unfair on Connor Barron, who'd done such a good job in the 6 role that day. So, look, it is what it is in terms of John Lundstram. I think, Clement clearly likes John Lundstram, admires John Lundstram, and I think, if he could get him back, he probably would try, which for me is a bit of a mistake. I wouldn't want Lundstram anywhere back near this club at any point. I think he's moved on now. That's the end of it. Now, apparently Trabzonspor fans and management are very unimpressed with John Lundstram, going as far as to call him slow, cumbersome, heavy, etc., etc. All words that I think we all used as well near the end of his time at Rangers. The fact that he was slow, the fact that he slowed the game down, he was cumbersome, he wasn't fit for purpose. So, it's interesting, isn't it, that it seems to be other clubs are kind of seeing the same thing that a lot of us fans saw, although Philippe Clement quite clearly didn't see that. Now, Senol Gunes, who is the technical director of Trabzonspor, has given a rather bizarre interview where he talks openly about John Lundstram, not something that often happens. Officials at clubs don't, managers, head coaches, technical directors, sporting directors, whatever, don't tend to really out players in the media or talk down, behind closed doors. They may tear them off a strip, they may call them whatever they want. But, in terms of the actual, in the public domain, they kind of keep quiet. However, Senol Gunes has spoken quite openly. He said, I can't understand the Lundstram transfer. We have several players with the same characteristics. Lundstram is a heavy and cumbersome football player, which I think is something we all know. There is nothing we can do at the moment, but if there is an opportunity to send him to another team, it would be good for both Lundstram and us. So it appears that Trabzonspor want rid of John Lundstram. Now, he is under contract. I don't think at the moment that, this is a situation where they're going to sack him or pay him up or cancel his contract. So it may be, in January, they look to move him on. But look, I genuinely hope that this is not, a kind of reunion tour that, come January, we'll be back in for Lundstram. I'll be absolutely devastated if this man re-signed for Rangers. I know Clement likes him. I get that 100%. And, the experience obviously is something that Clement would want. But to bring him back to the club, I think would be an absolute disaster. This is a player who, for me, ruins a team. He slows a game down. As Senor Gunes himself says in this quote, Lundstram is a very heavy and cumbersome football player. That is not something you want. You really wouldn't want to be one of a situation, in January, February time, say he came back. Would you really want John Lundstram picked ahead of Conor Barron? That would be an absolute retrograde step, but that Clement would do that. So for me, I really hope that whatever happens, that if he does leave Trabzonspor at some point, he is not to come back to Rangers. I really hope there is absolutely zero chance of that. That would be an absolute disaster for our club. Right, let's move it along a little bit. So who remembers this man here? Yes, Goyan, who is a former Rangers player, guys, a Romanian international, played for the club between 2011 and 2013. And been forming a rather effective partnership with Carlos Bocanegra after he signed from Palermo. Been very highly spoken of by a number of fans at the point. And obviously, his career kind of juddered to a halt and it all came crashing down after 2012. He eventually left in 2013, although he did play for Racing McCoist against Brechin City, I believe it was, at some point. Now, who is a former player, someone who got 60 Romania caps during his career, has been speaking about his international colleague, Ianis Hagi. Now, Ianis Hagi is currently with... So Mircea Lucescu still picked Hagi for Romania, even though Hagi isn't figuring for Rangers. Many felt that this was partly because of a, kind of desire to get Hagi working with, top level players again, to give Hagi a bit of a morale boost when it's felt that Hagi is kind of down in the dumps with what is going on at Rangers at this moment in time. Obviously, you've got the manager saying that he doesn't see him as a 10, doesn't see him as a part of Rangers' future. You've got Hagi saying that he's ready, willing to go for Rangers, but the manager thinking quite the otherwise. Now, Goyan has waded in on this debate and given his opinions on the treatment of Hagi at Rangers. This is what he's had to say in an interview that he gave. He said, Ianis Hagi is a valuable player. Unfortunately, he's not having a great time at Rangers, given that he is not on the best of terms with the manager there. So Goyan is clearly suggesting here, maybe this is something he's got from Hagi, or maybe this is just him making it up, I don't know, that him and Clement, Hagi and Clement, that is, have had a bit of a fallout. His summoning to our national team is also to do with his morale, and I think that our manager, Mircea Lucescu, did the right thing in picking him. It gives him a confidence boost, and there is now extra pressures on Rangers to play him. Obviously, if this guy is still getting picked for Romania, still getting picked for a top international side, why are we not considering him, especially as there is clearly a dearth of talent within this squad? Rangers are not playing great. They have just been outclassed in this Old Firm by Celtic, and their things are not rosy. I know their supporters are demanding the return of Ianis Hagi to the first team. Now, I don't think that's all supporters. There are some still, I think it's a bit much of a split on this one. Some supporters are, some supporters aren't. So I think Goyan is slightly out on that. But it's interesting that he thinks that there is an extra pressure on Rangers now to pick him, given the fact that he's still getting selected for the national team. Goyan went on to say this. He said, the facts are that Rangers have a talented footballer who, until he got injured, was playing very well there. And now that he's been called up and played after doing so well at the Euros, puts extra pressure on Rangers manager to use him more. Because when things don't go well, something needs to change. I think Ianis should play for Rangers. He's a technical player who can beat a man. He can make a killer pass too. In Scotland, there are not many players of this ability. Rangers play mainly on the attack, so they need players like Ianis Hagi. So interesting comments there from Goyan over Ianis Hagi. Yes, Ianis did play very well at the Euros, and he was one of the better players there. So I get that. Yes, things are not going well at the club at this moment in time. And to me, personal opinion here, to sit a player on 24 grand in the B team and not use him in part of the first team squad is very bad management and very bad business practice. People talk about this 6 grand extra, but we've just let Scott Wright go, not replaced him. There's your 6 grand. Goyan has said, that he thinks that Rangers should be picking him. And he's talked obviously about the fact that as far as he's concerned, in Scotland, there aren't many players of Ianis's ability, which technical and skillful ability, I've gotten inclined to agree with him on that one. Hagi is a top talent from that aspect. And I don't think, with a very few exceptions, there are many players that can quite compare to him. Maybe Ianis could do Callum McGregor type role for Rangers. He is very good on the ball. He can control a game. He can pass a ball very well. All the things that McGregor does to hurt Rangers. So is that something that Rangers should be looking at? Look, we all have our opinions on Hagi and what should happen with Hagi. Obviously, with Bajrami coming or Bayrami coming, whatever he's actually called, Bayrami, I think the correct pronunciation is. We've kind of solved that 10 problem, hopefully, although there are some worries that he'll be stuck out on the wing. But Hagi, I think, should have a role in this first team squad. I don't think we can go through to January with sitting a player on 24 grand a week in the reserves. That, I think, is very, very bad business. Also, I think, if there is still an intention to sell Hagi, if he does come back into the first team, play well, it's only going to raise his value. So for me, you're going to face another situation where we get to January, and if teams come in, they're going to come in with low ball offers, like the 650,000 we got for Blackburn for Cantwell, which is a bloody disgrace. Hagi's a player where you could get 3, 4, 5 million for. If he's playing. If he's not playing, you're going to struggle to get $1 million for him. And this is something where Rangers are really hurting themselves and have continued to do this with bad decisions over players in the past. If we want to move players on, get a decent markup on them, get a decent amount of money into the club, you've got to play them. You've got to show other clubs that, there is a player there that they can obviously bid on. Guys, let me know what you think anyway of Goyan's comments and obviously of what I've just had to say as well. Right, let's finish it off, guys. A bit of a personal message from myself. Look, I'll be honest with you. My aim with this is to go full-time. I want to do this as my full-time job. I hate working in retail. I hate working for the company I work for. It's a shit job. Long hours, crap pay, treated like crap. I want to go full-time. But the only way for that to happen is for views to remain high. The 8,000s, 5,000s, that's what we need to be aiming for. We need the money to obviously come into line. We need to be making a decent sum of money each month to be able to obviously pay the mortgage, to pay the bills, etc., etc. This would enable me to give more time to the channel, give more time to talking Rangers, give more time to actually doing more research into things, bringing you better quality videos, better quality graphics, etc., etc. The more time I have, the more time I can spend on these things. Now, look, I know that all people don't agree with me. I know that I make mistakes. I know that I overreact certain times. I know that I may have caused offence with some things that I've said to people, and people have accused me of all sorts of things, not being a Rangers fan, etc., etc. And look, if I've caused you any offence, if I've upset you in any shape or form, I apologise for that. I really genuinely do. Look, your support to this point has been absolutely phenomenal. It's been amazing, and it's blown me away, really. It really has. It really does mean an awful lot, guys. You've got no idea what it actually does mean for a person who is quite insecure in themselves anyway, who's gone through some really bad times since 2016. Your support has been absolutely superb. And I thank you so much for that. I've always said that I will work with other podcasts. I will help other podcasts. I've done what I can to promote the Journal, promote Not Another Rangers podcast. And I will have always said that I will work with the podcast. I want to do, work with the podcast. I want to help with the podcast. I want to, do work with the Rabble, do work with Gallant Few, do work with Hot Hand, do work with CJ, whoever. I'm happy to work with anyone, and I'm happy to support anybody. This is one family. We should all be pulling in the same direction. Look, I'd love to do more with them. Of course I would. Now, you can obviously help the channel if you want to by becoming a member. It's 99p a month. It's hardly anything. It's less than a cup of coffee. You can hit the super thanks button at the bottom of this video, give a little bit of cash to the channel. I hate asking for money. During the lives, you can give super chats, super stickers. This channel is free at the end of the day. It's always going to be a YouTube channel. I'm not going to go to Patreon. I'm not going to charge. I'm not going to hide things behind paywalls. I'm always going to provide you free content. So, the way you can support is obviously through the views. That raises money through the super chats, super stickers, super thanks. Commenting, liking, all that stuff helps, guys. That's what I need from you. That's what I'd like you to do to help me grow this channel. And obviously, as well, if you're a sponsor, you want to help the channel out, you want to sponsor the channel, then please, obviously, get in contact as well. And if you want to find us on social media, guys, we're on TikTok at OGGRN, at Glasgow Rangers Nation. We're also on Instagram, Glasgow Rangers Nation, at Glasgow Rangers Nation. And we're also on X, Glasgow Rangers Nation Owen James at OGGRN72. So all those places you can find us to give us a follow on any of those social media platforms. Guys, it's Monday morning. It's the start of a new Rangers week. Let's obviously build up towards that game against Dundee on Sunday. Hopefully 3 points in the bag. Let's do this, guys. On the way out, please smash that sub, ring that bell, drop me a comment, and obviously please like the content. And remember always, we are the people.